What is education, and why is education important? Is it important? After all, what's the real purpose of getting educated about anything? We so frequently take education and the process for learning in general totally for granted. Not only that, but the ways in which we think. How we've gone about structuring our own consciousness itself has largely remained unchanged for a long, long time. So how do we literally change our minds? Can we reconfigure our own ways of thinking? And if so, how? Join Dr. Joseph Atman, the founder of one of the world's most revolutionary educational centers, Middletree, and award-winning broadcaster Tammy Trujillo for Educate Everyone, and explore the mysteries of our own consciousness and the education we implement in order for it to be what it is.
And in this episode of Educate Everyone, we continue our conversation with Dee Hankins. He's a nationally acclaimed inspirational speaker renowned for his compelling message, Resilience is Everything. He spent 18 years in foster care and faced numerous personal challenges, including his daughter's battle with brain cancer. Dee draws from his life experiences to empower others to overcome adversity.
Here's a question for you. So then what do we need to do as either a society or within education or within our home life or wherever? What do we need to do to better prepare people, especially young people, but really anybody, for challenges that they inevitably face in life? Because I feel like it's not something that we really focus on. And again, just given your situation, like I said before, you were thrust into having to grapple with all of this, where a lot of people are sheltered from the kind of difficulties that, again, most of us inevitably have to grapple with within life, where you had to deal with that head on at such an early age. So what do we need to do to better prepare people, young and old, but especially young folks, to, again, just take on challenges that they're going to face in life and be better prepared for those things when, again, they inevitably come at us?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we need to teach techniques. And this is one of them, right? One of the many techniques that I teach. But we need to teach techniques because you said it. You're going to be hit with curveballs. It's going to happen. This is not make believe. This is not maybe. You are going to get hit with some type of curveballs in any of those buckets, right? And so being resilient is the name of the game. Everything in your body is designed to be resilient. Why don't we take a cue from that, right? So when you get sick, you don't stay like that. Your body has the systems in place for when you get sick, they spring right into action. Subconsciously, you don't need to think about it. You don't need to be like, oh my gosh, I have a cold. Come on, immune system, do your thing. If you get cut on your finger, you don't have to look at your finger and tell it to heal. It does it automatically. Same thing with everything in your body. When you eat something, your body gets rid of the waste and it uses the nutrients. That's a system. Life is cyclical and life is full of systems. For some reason, though, us as human beings, we don't think we need systems in place, and we do. And so we try to avoid hurt. And then when it comes, we're not prepared for it. What I try to tell my son, and my son is the sweetest kid ever. He's 9. He still has his innocence. I believe it is my duty as his dad to, in a kid-friendly way, to prepare him for a broken heart, to prepare him to get bullied at school, to prepare him for somebody to say something mean to him. It's my job to prepare him to do those things. It goes to the old proverb, raise your children in the way they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. We don't raise our children in the way they should go because we have all of these different beliefs that have been shaped by our hurts. If you used to go to church and the pastor stole your money and bought a Lamborghini, you might say, all churches are bad. I'm never going to church again. I'm never doing this. And the reality is that's just a pastor who made a bad choice. We do it all the time. Enron, like for a minute, it was just like, oh, this was such a booming company. And then boom, they shut down and so on and so forth. And that's life. The things that are bad will wither away. The things that are good will stay. They will flourish. We can teach people to be resilient by setting up systems in place, by having coping mechanisms. But first, in order for me to teach something, I need to be self-aware, right? Which is why when I go into schools and I train educators, I train them on that. You know, they come in and say, hey, we want you to teach our kids to be more resilient. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, and when I go in there, I say, well, in order for your kids to be more resilient, you need to be more resilient. You know what I'm saying? So we have teachers who are unhealthy physically. We have teachers that are unhealthy. In any of those core 4 areas, we have struggles. And if I'm struggling physically, although I can give you advice on what not to do, I haven't done it myself. So it's a little bit more difficult for people to grasp what you're saying. So I say, why don't you try to do it from an authentic point of view? I'll use my son again for reference. So he wants to play soccer. And he says, I want to be great, Dad. I want to be a great soccer player. And I say, hey, in order to be a great soccer player, you need to get your touches in at home, not just practice. You need to get your touches in at home. There needs to be a balance between playing video games and practicing soccer, practicing your moves, practicing your footwork, so on and so forth. So a week goes by and I don't say anything. I just let him do his thing so he can see what I'm talking about. So Friday rolls around and he's with me and I ask him, hey, how many days did you play Fortnite this week? He says, every day. How many days did you practice soccer this week? He says, none. I say, do you see the imbalance? So now he goes to soccer practice or his soccer game and he doesn't do very well, or he's mad because the other kids are better than him. And I go, you have to figure out how to balance these things out. And so I started to show him. I've been telling him for ages, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to write this book. I'm going to write this book. And my schedule just keeps getting in the way. However, I noticed that when I wake up at 5 a.m, I can get my writing done. I can get my main goals that I have. I usually have four goals per month that I'm constantly working on. And if I wake up at 5 a.m, I can get all of these goals done by 8 a.m. and then be set for the rest of the day. And so I started waking up at 5 and he'll see me on the computer. Hey, Dad, what are you doing? When he wakes up, hey, Dad, what are you doing? Oh, I'm writing. The next day, hey, Dad, what are you doing? Oh, I'm writing. The next day, hey, Dad, what are you doing? I'm writing. So he saw me doing this for like 3-4 days in a row. And then all of a sudden I started noticing when he got up, he went to go brush his teeth, he ate breakfast, and he would just juggle his ball, play with his ball, play with his doll. Hey, buddy, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just getting my touches in. I'm teaching him by example, and he's gotten a lot better. The balance is there. Hey, man, before you play Fortnite, hey, did you get your touches in? Oh, yeah. Okay, Dad, I'm going to do that. And he'll hold me accountable. Well, did you get your writing in? And I'm like, yeah, I did. 5 a.m. And he goes, okay, cool. We can do that. It costs us nothing. And society is struggling in one of those 4 areas: spiritually, financially, physically, or mentally. In one of those 4 areas, there's a major disconnect. That's because they have no systems in play. Life throws curveballs at them and they just throw their hands up and they start blaming. They start getting frustrated because they're trying to control things they can't control, and life goes out the window. And it doesn't have to be that way. Sometimes we just have to slow down and take full and absolute responsibility for our life. Your environment, you can't control. That's bucket number 3. So you have to let that go. And you have to get back into bucket number 1 and say, how do I react to this? Just because you're born poor doesn't mean you have to stay poor, and vice versa. Just because you're born rich doesn't mean that you'll stay rich if you consistently make bad choices. And so it's constantly teaching these things, especially to educators, because they're the teachers. They're the ones passing these things down. But I'll tell you this, Joe, just to kind of make this full circle. I've been to many foster youth education conferences where foster youth have gotten up to speak and thank those that were involved in their success, whether it's their graduation or their college, whatever it may be. And I can tell you, out of all my years, 20 years as a speaker, for 16 as a professional, all of my years, I have never seen one foster student get up and say, I want to thank my teacher for testing me in math. Never. I want to thank my teacher for those history quizzes that he gave me. Never. It was always something in those core four. Always. I want to thank my teacher for believing in me. That's spiritually. I want to thank my teacher for bringing me to the side and listening to me when I was really going through stuff. That's spiritually. I want to thank my teacher for using her own money to pick me up to my job or fill out this application or buy this program for me. At the last year's foster youth conference, there was a student that said, my teacher took her own money. She bought this software program for me, and I was allowed to do this, this, and this. And now this is what I do as a career. That's financially. Thank my teacher for saving me from an abusive home. That's physically. Thank my counselor for listening to me when I was having problems, when I was suicidal, when I didn't want to live anymore. That's mentally. So people are struggling in these core four areas all the time. So if we can get hyper fixated on how you can change these core four areas of your life, then there we go.
Yeah, and again, we just don't focus on all of that much. It's an interesting question as to whose responsibility is it? I would say that it kind of first and foremost, and again, this is sort of the irony of you presenting this idea to people, but I would say first and foremost, these things happen at home, especially with young ones, that most people get their spirituality from a tradition that was given to them from the previous generation. Now that can evolve, of course, people get older, but by and large, people inherit their knowledge about spirituality from the tradition that they were born into. Physically, obviously, they're going to develop habits, but that also kind of stems from what is allowed at home. What do you allow your son to do, as you just talked about? He's getting his touches in before he's playing video games. But again, that starts with guidance. And the financial part, nobody teaches you about finances, right?
No.
And mentally, again, within the way that we have set this whole system up within our society is that we send our kids off to be students to an institution that's supposed to send them back to the household as these well-rounded individuals. But as you just said, you kind of insinuated, right, that a lot of what school is, giving tests, talking about whatever the lesson was, not necessarily as much as developing that human being side of people. And so, again, where does the burden lie to make sure that well-rounded human being surfaces? Because it's really not happening at schools. The home life within the modern world, at least in the West here, is very different than what it used to be. And again, I would say that a lot of the things that you're talking about kind of start at home. It's the main question is, how do you become a well-rounded human being? As we've been talking about here, how do you face challenges and adversity head on and be able to grapple with those things? And right now, I feel like frequently we pass off our children to an educational system whose function is very different. Aim is not to necessarily create a well-rounded individual. It seems like we're missing an opportunity somewhere. If we're really concerned about this, if this is a question that we really, really want to get into and solve, then we need to take a much different approach than we are currently, because whatever we're doing now, I think we can all see that it's not living up to what it could be. We're not giving, especially our young ones, we're not putting them in the best position. And again, I would say that is supposed to start at home, but there should be other resources in place also.
Yeah, well, you have organizations like yours. You have me as a school. If you're in a school right now, you're listening to this and you're like, oh, we need more resources for my kid. Well, here I am, right? There's people out there. We just have to look. And again, Joe, it really goes into balance. How much time as an administrator do you spend on social media, mindlessly scrolling, versus looking for resources? How much time as a parent? Because I do this all the time. I tell kids or parents too, open up your screen time and tell me the time. And it's remarkable how much time we spend disengaged rather than trying to figure out what we're trying to do. I'm not here to blame anybody. I used to be the same way. And now this is literally in my book. I set a timer for me for all social medias, 15 minutes, Monday through Friday. That's all I get. Monday through Friday, 15 minutes. We're talking Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of the major social media outlets. I get 15 minutes Monday through Friday. After that, I'm forced to listen to audiobooks. I'm forced to write. I'm forced to do those things. And I've begun to mature and I've begun to understand why successful people are successful, because they utilize their time in a way that benefits them in these core 4 areas. If you don't mind, can I read a little part of my book? You're the first one to hear this, so
please
consider yourself lucky.
Let's do it.
Short little part. It says, in his book, No Excuses, The Power of Self-Discipline, Brian Tracy writes the following: your ability and willingness to discipline yourself, and that's a key word right there, Joe, is willingness, to discipline yourself, to accept personal responsibility for your life, is essential to happiness, health, success, achievement, and personal leadership. Accepting responsibility is one of the hardest disciplines, but without it, no success is possible. The failure to accept responsibility and the attempt to foist responsibility for things in your life that make you unhappy on other people, institutions, and situations completely distort cause and effect, undermines your character, weakens your resolve, and diminishes your humanity. It leads to making endless excuses. So I have after that, repeat after me. I am where I am spiritually because of the choices I have made. I am where I am financially because of the choices that I have made. I am where I am physically because of the choices I have made. I am where I am mentally because of the choices I have made. And then I go to write. Be honest. How did that feel? Did it resonate with confidence or did it leave an icky feeling? Chances are, if you got chiseled abs, a healthy 401k, a loving family, and a deep sense of purpose, these statements felt like a well-deserved pat on the back. They affirm the positive choices that you have made. On the other hand, if you're battling debt, thinking about divorce, overweight, and stressed out every day, those statements felt like more of a slap in the face. They hit hard, highlighting your shortcomings, the gaps between where you are and where you want to be. Maybe your first instinct was to deflect, to blame someone or something else. No. I am where I am financially because the government didn't forgive my student loan debts. Or perhaps you went into a safe haven of victimhood. No, I am where I am mentally because my boss doesn't like me. And the list goes on. Because I'm black, white, Mexican, Asian, a man, a woman, gay, straight, Christian, Catholic, Muslim, because of racism, sexism, classism, genderism, all the isms, because I'm smart, dumb, poor, rich, because my mom left, my dad was never there, foster care, healthcare, interest rates, the economy, the president. The because becomes a shield, a wall built to protect us from the uncomfortable truth that we have a role to play in our own circumstances. We hide behind these becauses, using them to justify our inactions or to relinquish ourselves of responsibility. But the because is also a cage, trapping us in the cycle of helplessness. It keeps us from seeing the choices we have made and can make, the power we do have to shape our lives. And then I go on to look at some examples. So this encapsulates what you're talking about. Yes, it can start at home and it should start at home, but some kids don't have that. Some kids like myself, they don't have the catalyst at home. So you grow up, you make mistakes, but at some point in life, you have to go, okay, what choices am I making? What agreements have I made with myself because of what somebody did to me? And what is out of my control? And that's why this notion of resilience, and in order to be resilient, you have to understand these 3 buckets. You have to master these 3 buckets. That's why it's so critical. But the more we go, I'm just going to keep blaming other people, the sicker and sicker the world gets. I had a viral post that 6 million, 7 million views or something, where I simply state that it is the parents' responsibility for the educational success of their kids. Like you said, we pass our kids on. We don't teach them manners. We don't teach them behaviors at home. And we say, teachers, you deal with it. But then we also don't want teachers to discipline our kids. We don't want them to, I don't want to say forceful, but enact rules and boundaries. When I grew up, Even although I was in foster care, my foster parents told me this. When you go to school, your teacher is judge, jury, and executioner. What she says or what he says goes. You listen, you pay attention, you be a good student, and that's that. So if I was acting up and my teachers called home, I got in trouble. You don't see that nowadays. When teachers call home, teachers get in trouble. And it's just like, dude, that's unfair. It's unfair for me not to pour into my child as a parent, send them off to school, and then me deflect the consequences of my inaction on them. That's for kids with parents at home. Kids with no parents at home, now the teachers, now you do play a role. Understanding, oh, this kid doesn't have any parents at home. I could impart wisdom on them in a way that's understanding and in a way that you're not taking things personal. We, as a society, we take things personal because we don't understand these buckets. We don't understand that the way we think, you and I, Joe, the way you dress, the music you listen to, the movies you watch, the actors and actresses you like and adore, all that has been shaped by what someone has said to us or done to us. So we walk around this world with these lenses on, and these lenses are given to us through our experiences. I'm reminded of my friend. Her name is Michelle. She's a counselor now. She's first generation. Her parents can help her with her homework. They didn't know the concepts. They were primarily Spanish speakers, so on and so forth. But what they did teach her was to be a good student, to listen and to pay attention. That's all they could offer at that moment, and to look for and ask for help. And now she's a school counselor. She's doing great. She's a great counselor. I believe that is possible. Her parents understood there are some things that are out of my control. Control this. And within this sphere, within this bucket, I'm going to do whatever I can. And it went on to pass success principles down to their daughter. And we could all do that. Cost us nothing. We've all experienced something. We could all do that.
But again, I think most people just don't have the skill set and haven't been taught it themselves, right? Or just don't realize the importance of downloading all those values, those skills onto their children. And again, I don't know that it's necessarily the education system's responsibility to do that. If we wanted to change the aim of it, that would be a conversation to have.
We could teach creativity. We could teach all of these things. When I grew up, I had cooking, I had sex ed, I had a few other electives, and then all of those are done. So we don't know how to cook. Cooking teaches you discipline, but it also teaches you math, but it also teaches you science. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It teaches you all of these things, yet we took all of that away. So I'm in agreement with you. I think we're sending our kids to an institution full of people who are also struggling in these core four. They know that what they're doing is not effective, yet they have to keep doing it because financially I have to go to work. Mm-hmm. And I think I told you this when we had our initial meeting with one another, is there's two types of educators. There's ones that get to go to work and there's ones that have to go to work. The ones that get to go to work are the ones that speak up. They're the ones that advocate for their students. They're the ones that make change. They're the ones that are super creative in what they do. You have the academy in Atlanta. It's a school in Atlanta that is top notch. It's like you go into it, there's dragons all over the place. There's gates that look like Harry Potter. It really emphasizes the kids' imagination. And there's a whole wait list to get into that school. That I'm talking 3D dragons coming out of the wall, wizards and all kind of stuff. But there's also a school in Inglewood that looks like a prison. You walk in, there's metal gates. There's bars on the window. The school's decor is just white and stone. And that's that. And this is what we're sending our kids to. And we're like, yes, educate them. Good teachers that don't have to go to work would look at this and say, dude, our school needs help. This is ridiculous. They would take a step back and look, but we're so behind on these life struggles. Life keeps throwing curveballs at us because we have no systems in place. So anytime life throws a curveball at us, we take a step back. So everybody is involved. And when I do my student development program, it's based on that notion. Parents have a role, teachers have a role, and students have a role. And if they can all connect and work together, there's no reason for this kid not to be successful. But what I have seen, especially in the last 10 years, parents blame teachers, teachers blame administrators, administrators blame the government, or the government blames the parents blame the kids blame the. So there's all this disconnect. Instead of taking the time and saying, okay, guys, what can we do? How can we do this? I thought, stupidly, but I thought COVID would change everything for us. I thought COVID was going to be a big reset button for everybody, because during COVID, we found out, hey, teachers are really important. I love my kids, but man, staying at home with them for 8 hours a day was tough for me. Seriously, especially if you couldn't go outside and do things. So that was tough for me. So I understand the value of education because I'm a product of good educators helping me get to where I am. However, a part of me also knew that we are going to go back to exactly what we've been doing. Like, a part of me kind of knew that. Why? Familiarity. We didn't want to try something new. So what happened? We went back, and a few schools, a few districts tried to do things differently, and it didn't work the first time. So they went right back to where we are. And 2025 is no different than what it looked like in 2019 for majority of the schools. There are some schools that took it, but right now it's the same. And it goes back to what you're saying. We're not focused on this. We're just focused on trying to survive these curveballs that life keeps throwing at us, because we don't understand that if we do the hard work now, what I call cry now, laugh later, you can see it, but we're so scared and frightened. We're frightened to lose our job because we're financially strapped, because we're living paycheck to paycheck. And if you're frightened to do something, you're not going to stand up. Dave Ramsey has this, he did this live event. He hilariously talks about this scenario where he's talking about being debt free, and he's at work. He's carrying around this chain to emphasize the borrower is slave to the lender. And he does a scenario where the boss disrespects the employee, him, and he walks out. And the boss goes, hey, where are you going? And Dave Ramsey, he goes, I don't have any payments. And he walks out the door. And it's just like, that's so true. When you're not bogged down, if somebody mistreats you or you see something that's not going the way it should be, you can walk out. You don't have to subject yourself to it. But we don't have that. And we don't have that in education because we don't want to lose our job. I see a slight disconnect, and I have to tread lightly because I'm not traditionally in education. I just work with educators. I see more teachers storm out to get paid more rather than more teachers storm out because the system is messed up. Now, what if you had both? Like, imagine a world where teachers stood up and said, you know what? This isn't right. We're not teaching our kids anything that's beneficial. That's it. Like, I'm going on strike, not for money. I'm going on strike because of the system. I'm going on strike because this is broken. I'm not going to teach here because you're suspending Black students 60% more than white students for the exact same infractions. I'm not going to stand up for that. I'm going to walk out. You don't have that.
Yeah, there's so much more to talk about with this. We're going to just have to do another episode with, if that's okay.
No, absolutely.
Because there's just so much to talk about here. And I think you are amazing. I think you're just a fascinating individual and a complete and total inspiration. We're all better off for having you around and being able to draw from that fortitude that you've cultivated from all those difficulties and hardships that you've had to endure. Thank you for that. And I thank you for taking time with us. Where can people find out more about you?
Thank you. And Joe, thank you so much for such kind words, man. I really appreciate that. You can visit my website, www.deehankins.com. That's DEE Hankins, HANKINS. You can follow the podcast, The Dee Hankins Show, which is on YouTube, and Instagram is I am Dee Hankins. And again, student development program I do teacher trainings, staff development, school assemblies. So if you're listening, you're an educator and you really want some change, like real change that gets to the heart and the root of things, please consider me. I just developed a new tier for West Coast schools. So if you're on the West Coast, that's Oregon, Washington, and up and down California, there's a celebration tier in my At Best program where I put students that are struggling, multiple D's, multiple F's, on a 6-week challenge. We have parent nights, we have teacher nights, we have assemblies, 6-week challenge to eradicate their D's and F's. If they meet that challenge, we will take those students on a trip to Disneyland. So that's the At Best program. If you want more information, visit my website or reach out to me. You can email me at info@deehankins.com, and I look forward to serving you all.
And now the Middle Tree Minute.
This is Kristen Hernandez, Middle Tree's executive assistant. Did you know that the brain is the sharpest in the morning, right after waking up? Even 10 minutes of reading, reviewing flashcards, or working a math problem before school can give your child a mental head start. Think of it like a warm-up before a workout. The brain needs stretching too. Keeping mornings screen-free can also make this time more focused and less stressful. It's a small change that builds a powerful daily habit. And that's the Middle Tree Minute.
And now a quick look into Dr. Atman's book, A Philosophical War. Joe, a theme in your book seems to be about changing our minds, and that just doing so changes our experience. Now, that sounds really simple, but is it really that simple?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Because if you change the way that you look at things, then obviously the way that you're digesting whatever it is you're looking at, thinking about whatever it might be that comes into your mind or into your experience, if you change that perception, then the experience of it is going to be utterly altered. And a lot of the times, this is totally thematic through what we talk about in A Philosophical War, is that a lot of times we're not seeing things objectively. We are seeing things through the lens of bias, through the lens of preconception that we have, through a lens of our past experience, and all of our mind. It's a really interesting thing to kind of unpack, but really everything that we put out into the external world that is sort of this process of our mind, this process of our consciousness, everything that we do is like harkens into our past. So the mind is really a product of the past, and we bring that out into the present. So you've got this conflict of confluence between the past, which again is what your mind really is. You learn all these things, you have all these experiences, everything that you've learned, everything you've experienced, everything that you've been conscious of up to this point. Well, that all occurred again in the past, and yet it informs your present outlook. So the question is, how can you change your mind? Not even so much change your mind, but how can you almost erase your mind and approach things with this crystalline, pure, just unfiltered sort of vantage point? And how can you look at things in a way that is unfiltered by all of those past experiences that your mind and your consciousness brings along with it at every step of the way? And so if you're able to do that, you'll have not only a new vantage point, not only a new view, but a whole new and a very pure experience with that thing that you're observing.
Thank you for listening to Educate Everyone with Dr. Joseph Atman and Tammy Trujillo. Join us each week as we explore the inner workings of our own minds and the educational system which builds and supports it. Also, check out our website at middletree.org to see what opportunities Middle Tree's programs can offer you or your student. And join us on social media. If you have any questions you'd like Dr. Atman to answer, please leave them on a post or send us a message, and you may hear them answered on the next episode of Educate Everyone. Until then, thanks for tuning in.